Hello everyone, welcome back. With version 3 of Genshin Impact coming to a close, and version 4 just on the horizon, I thought it would be a great idea to look back at the 5-star characters we received and shared our journeys with over the year. If you do enjoy this style of video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and let me know down below if you would like to see the same topic covered for other versions of Genshin Impact. Now let us take a dive and rewind to where version 3 began. Tighnari, released August 24th, 2022. Elemental type, Dendro. Weapon type, Bow. Role, DPS, Forest Nerd, Fungi Enthusiast, Hero of the Mechanics. Tighnari was the first 5-star character to welcome us into Sumeru, both as a banner and an extremely early introduction during the Archon quests. This was also the first 5-star character since the release of Genshin Impact to be announced as a brand new addition to the standard banner pool. While Bow DPS characters are not always the most well received, Tighnari easily became a fan favorite through his sassy personality, unique design, and new playstyle that adapted a rapid-firing charged attack for Bow characters. After the recast that took place during the Windbloom Festival, fans began to love the character even more as his personality swayed from sassy to a knowledgeable, mature, and responsible forest ranger. For those who played through his story quest, this fondness only grew stronger as we discovered a character who had a love for the natural environment of Sumeru and everything that resides within it. Characters fell in love with the wholesome side of Tighnari, who swore to protect the living things, even if it meant protecting a very mechanic that was built against Sumeru's laws. This strong will to protect would only carry over to the next character Hoyoverse would introduce. Cyno, released September 28th, 2022. Elemental type, Electro. Weapon type, Polar. Role, DPS, General Mahamatra, TCG King, overall fun guy. Before Cyno was released, we were already introduced to and shared a large part of the Sumeru Archon quest with this character. From what we knew before his release was that Cyno was a large figure of enforcement for Sumeru. He would take all legal matters as seriously as possible, yet still displayed the sense of humor of a 40-year-old dad trying to make his kids laugh. We love him for that. Upon release, fans were excited to see how Cyno would play out, and it didn't take long for fans to become skewed on whether or not they enjoyed his playstyle. Having a skill window in his burst to be able to time your elemental skill for maximum efficiency sent some players such as myself through the roof with excitement, as it felt extremely satisfying to pull off, while other players decided they would rather stick with their current Electro DPSs that didn't need the extra bit of timing to pull off correctly. This didn't help Cyno anymore when players started to discover how reliant he was on also receiving his 5-star weapon to truly perform. This would make him one of the first few characters that were extremely reliant on also receiving their signature weapon, as other 5-star and 4-star variant polearms were just not nearly as suitable for his kit. Outside his playstyle, we were introduced to a very fun story quest that put our detective hats on and got to see the day-to-day life of the General Mahamatra. This quest wasn't anything out of the park, but enjoyable nonetheless. Cyno was also introduced as a pillar to Genshin's newest game mode, Genius Invocation TCG. This mode was a new side game players could play inside Genshin Impact that allowed them to play a trading card game using Genshin assets. To promote this new game mode through version 3, Cyno appeared in half of the flagship events since his release to remind players that the TCG exists. Overall, Cyno was a very well received character for his personality, but some fans didn't like the way his playstyle turned out, especially with its weaker Dendro synergy. This would be very unlike the next character Hoyoverse released. Nilou, released October 14th, 2022. Elemental type, Hydro. Weapon type, Sword. Role, DPS, Dancer. Nilou was introduced as a very sweet, kind, and caring character, helping the Traveler and crew during the Archon quest to save Nahida and spending her story quest protecting Zubayur Theater. She also showed great care for the people around her, urging those to rekindle relationships so as to not lose any precious time with the ones they love. Nilou has a strong, elegant steward character, showcasing a free spirit in a society locked behind academic validation and performance. At the time of her release, Nilou would not bring anything new to the table for a Hydro DPS. It was only until the next character release that Nilou would rise to become one of the greats. Nahida, released November 2nd, 2022. Elemental type, Dendro. Weapon type, Catalyst. Role, Support, Archon, All-Knowing Onion. Archons are always meant to be strong, oftentimes being the strongest representation of their elemental typing. It was until this point that players knew the possible Dendro reactions, but we never knew just how strong they would become. Upon Nahida's release, we were quickly swept into a Dendro meta through just how much Dendro applications she would offer. This brought characters previously mentioned such as Nilou and Cyno right into top tier comps now that they had a phenomenal support that would make their kits shine. Outside of her playstyle, we received 2 story quests for Nahida during version 3 of Genshin Impact. The first quest wasn't as significant as her presence during the Archon quest and how we got to see her handle the Balladeer and Dottore, but her second quest introduced a new area of Sumeru and more history into the origins of Teyvat and the Elemental Dragons. Through these story developments and insane kit, Nahida quickly became one of the best selling banners of all time and easily the strongest Archon in the current meta. Wanderer. Released December 7th, 2022. Elemental type, Anemo. Weapon type, Catalyst. Role, DPS, Edgelord, rival name generator. Whether you named him something completely serious or completely goofy like Wanderdees, Wanderer proved to be a great addition to the playable character roster. Who doesn't like to turn into an attack helicopter and soar through the skies of Teyvat? This character makes vertical exploration so easy, not having 1, but 2 stamina bars. Outside of his exponential exploration abilities, Wanderer is an extremely fun Anemo DPS to play as you could hover above your enemies while wailing attacks from above onto them. We haven't gotten to see a lot of Wanderer since his Archon quest, which aims to create a character that wanted to atone for their sins and come to terms with their past after essentially being reincarnated, but hopefully the next region will grow upon his story and establish how Wanderer will interact with his former Fatubi Harbingers. Wanderer was received pretty well by the community from a design standpoint, but it seems as of right now, a lot of players have chosen to not use the character as he doesn't bring something new to the table the same way the Dendro characters did with their elemental reactions. I would agree with this standpoint, but I also believe that Wanderer is one of the best written characters Genshin has to offer, and I'm very excited to see how his story develops. This straightforward personality that doesn't want to be bothered by the rest of the world would be the exact theme Hoyoverse kept for their next character. Alhaitham, released January 18th, 2023. Elemental type, Dendro. Weapon type, Sword. Role, DPS, Academic King, Green Kaching, Husband. I swear this man has about 10,000 wives by now through the amount of Alhaitham marriages I have seen across social media. A quick fan favorite, what's there not to love about the rational, smart Academic King? One thing to not love would be his kit. Being extremely identical to that of Kaching, a character who released with the launch of Genshin Impact. Fans were quick to start coining Alhaitham as Dendro Kaching or Green Kaching. It's unfortunate his kit had to be so reminiscent of a character that has existed from the start of the game, but his overall character makes people look away from that one discrepancy for what is a very intriguing character. I have always loved the debater characters that use logic and rational thought into the choices they make, which makes Alhaitham one of the highlights for the entirety of the Sumeru Archon quests. Although being a fan favorite character, a flawed kit would be the trend that continued to the next character released in Genshin Impact. Dia, released March 1st, 2023. Elemental type, Pyro. Weapon type, Claymore. Role, DPS? Off-field support? Anything? Hoyoverse was exactly 1 month too early to this April Fool's joke of a release. Claymore characters already have it rough as is, but Dia had to be the worst release character we have had to date, and it is unfortunate that this release was right before the launch of Hoyoverse's next big game, Honkai Star Rail, as a lot, and I mean a lot, of players left the game in rage, which really brought down Genshin's active player base. This was also at a time where content starts to slow down a bit for Genshin, and players are dropping the game before the next region, which the release of Dia only escalated. This was one of the most anticipated characters from the fan base to release, and unfortunately all we got was a really cool kit and extremely lackluster numbers for a DPS. Not only is she designed to be a DPS, but also designed to be an off-field support. On paper, tanky DPSs do exist in other games where you play as only one character, such as a bruiser in League of Legends like Riven or Darius. But in a game that involves constant switching between characters and having your DPS on field the longest, the game cannot support a character that can excel at both. On top of this, her elemental skill barely works half the time, and so players were distraught upon the release of this character. Hopefully over time, we'll see patches that help fix Dia and maybe improve her DPS numbers. But this trend would be yet another one that would continue to the final character released in version 3 of Genshin Impact. Baizhu, released May 2nd, 2023. Elemental type, Dendro. Weapon type, Catalyst. Role: support, shielder, healer, pharmacist. The last character to release in version 3 was the much anticipated Baizhu. We have been waiting for this character since the Liyue Archon quest. To put that in retrospective, that's 2.5 years we have been waiting for this character. Upon his release, many were upset to find that he doesn't heal as much as Kokomi, doesn't apply the same Dendro application as Nahida, and doesn't shield as strong as Zhongli, therefore making him extremely weak compared to his alternative options. This release was once again sprung upon us at the same time Honkai Star Rail was booming with its release launch hype, and made Baizhu's banner really underperform in sales. Those who have been waiting years for this character either got tired of waiting or were really let down at what his kit had to offer. Much like Dia, where Hoyoverse tried to make a character that could fill 2 roles of a DPS and off-field support, they tried making Baizhu an all-around support that can both heal and shield. We've seen this before with characters like Diona, who proved to be very successful, but for a 5-star character, it seems much better to have a specific niche to excel at rather than trying to be a jack of all trades in a certain role category. The only way to make this work would be for Hoyo to pump Baizhu's healing, shielding, and elemental application, but at that point he would become almost too broken of a character. Only time will tell if he may have a resurgence, much like Kokomi, but here's to hoping some buffs come for all the players who waited so long for this character. Overall, version 3 of Genshin introduced some new fan favorite characters, greatly expanded upon the story and lore of Teyvat, and solidified a voice from the fans of Genshin Impact who could share their displeasures with the game and try to help improve future character releases. We'll have to see what kind of unique characters Hoyoverse has in store for us with version 4 of Genshin Impact. I really hope we see another Geo character soon. But with that being said, I will catch you all later. So long, everybody.